So during the break there, we were having a kind of a fun conversation about the flex credit, and you know, that's really the purpose of this session. We put out a lot of information on this. There's commissioner's memos. It's outlined on my fact sheet. We're going to outline it again in the presentation today, but I really just want to have a real conversation about how it impacts our students, what do we need to be aware of, and really try to maybe capture some of that we were talking about during the break. So I'm going to hit the high points, and then let's dig down into it. In short, and like I said, the black and white is out there. I'm not going to read it to everybody, but in short, the Computer Science Flex Credit is a credit that students can receive for taking one of our ADE/Arkansas Career Ed approved high school courses that will change the student's graduation requirements. And I think that's the big misunderstanding that's out there, that people think this is a math, people think this is a science. It is not. It is a computer science that can change the student's graduation requirements from requiring 4 math to requiring 3 math in a computer science, and from requiring 3 science to 2 computer science and a science. Now, y'all made fun of me because I'm also a lawyer, and I get very pedantic in how I express that, but I think that's important. As counselors and advisors, we need to make sure our students are aware of what this means to them, or what it could potentially mean. But I also am very disheartened sometimes that teachers, or not teachers, but schools may be using this flexibility that we've provided to students and schools and hiding from it in a way that they're not giving their students that opportunity because they're scared of the difference, the how it's different than what we normally operate under. And you know, we were talking about during the break that a lot of the hesitancy sometimes around the CS Flex credit is how does it impact the students that are going to college? And you know, if you look at Arkansas statistics right now, and I shared this with y'all during the break, that only about 50% of our students, graduating seniors, go to college in Arkansas. Half. How are we supporting the other half? And I'm not saying I mean, obviously, I'm a first-generation college student. I have 3 college degrees all the way up to a Juris Doctorate. You know, we all value education and post-secondary education. But sometimes, some students, just giving them the skills. I mean, that other 50% that's not going to college, why not give them a set of skills that they can that they can use to go out and get a job? I mentioned a company at the break, and I won't say their name, but I have CEO of a local Arkansas company that came to me and he said, Anthony, he said, and it's a programming company here in Arkansas, he said, I will hire a student fresh out of high school if they have these computer science skills that I'm looking for, and they'll get out of bed and come to work on time. And I will pay them $60,000 to $70,000 a year fresh out of high school. Now, I don't know about y'all, but my teaching salary was not $60,000 to $70,000 a year, even after getting a bachelor's degree. So obviously, there are great opportunities out there for our students. And while the Flex Credit does create, I don't want to say complications, opportunities that our counselors and our teachers have to help advise students maybe to a greater level, and make sure they understand. It also provides opportunities for that 50% that's not going to college. I'm just going to stop there and kind of see what your thoughts are.
I think it just brings up the point that we've opened doors, we've opened pathways to students that haven't been there before. And so their teachers, their administrators, their counselors, they're still developing their awareness of what those pathways are and those opportunities and what that means for a specific student. So I think it really just highlights the need for those groups of people who are advising and who are suggesting, and that includes counselors, parents, teachers, administrators, instructional coaches like myself, to be developing our own knowledge about what that could mean. So if a student decides to replace a math and or a science credit in graduation with computer science, that may open up some great opportunities for them, but it is a choice that they are making. to
Right.
choose against something else. And we all know, we face that many times in life where we have great opportunities ahead of us and we really have to weigh pros and cons. Where is it we're trying to go? What is our goal that we hope to accomplish? And which of these paths is going to be most likely to get us there?
And that's so important how you said that. I was going to use the phrase unintended consequences because of the flex credit, but you used the word opportunity. And I think if we recognize it as an opportunity and not a consequence, so I think we need to be careful. There are certain students on certain pathways that we just need to equip our counselors on those things. Like for instance, I know the thing that's come up and we might be able to help me answer it is how does it affect those students that may be eligible for an NCAA scholarship? So how does the flex credit affect that? I know many superintendents and principals are asking that, so maybe we could have a response to that.
So obviously, I can't get into NCAA and
Sure.
specifically what they will recognize. But I will say that I started a whole round of email conversations with national leaders about this exact issue. I will start by saying that the students that would affect is less than 7% of the population that goes to college.
Interesting.
So we're then writing policy for, or I don't want us to get into policy that while it's important that they have those opportunities, statewide policy shouldn't be written in a way that is specific to a small percentage. Is what I'm saying.
Yes.
What has to be in effect is that we equip the counselors and the administrators with the knowledge of how they can better advise those students that may be on those pathways. And we have some options for the flex credit. I will say, however, that the NCAA does recognize computer science courses that meet certain requirements under the math and science umbrella. Okay, so now that would be up to each school to go out and seek that approval, just like they do for any other course under NCAA guidelines, to seek that approval. But I have started and are engaging some national leaders in this conversation about the NCAA credit issue. We want to ensure that our schools, especially the schools that are teaching our top-end courses, those advanced courses, the CSA, that those type of courses especially are being recognized under this. But we even feel that our first-year courses should be recognized under that, and we're looking at those options. That said, that a lot of our students that are going to go to college, they're going to take 4 years of math. They're going to take 3 years of science anyway. Computer science is still valid for them. Mm-hmm. Not only is it valid in the content knowledge, but if they don't use the computer science as that replacing or changing that fourth year math or changing that third year science, it still rolls over as one of their 6 required career focus. So that's the reason we call it a flex credit, because not only can it flex from meeting that math or science requirement, but if they don't need it, and predominantly your kids that are going to go to college, which is once again about 50%, those kids already are on a pathway to take 4 traditional math, 3 traditional science. Those computer science still roll over to flex credit. But to your NCAA questions, just briefly, I would encourage schools to apply for that NCAA eligibility, and as schools receive feedback from NCAA, please share that with my office, and let's work through those issues as we come to them. But let's not negate the benefit that computer science can have for 93% of our students because of the problems it might cause for 7% of our students.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also a good idea to get the math and science teachers to a complete understanding of this flex credit too. So when they're advising their kids, what science do I take next year, what math do I take next year, they can say, well, this, or computer science. They can be part of that, building the computer science program and helping the individual child decide what's best for that child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Anthony, one question that I had as we were talking, was I correct in my understanding that flex credit, if a student has 2 computer science courses, that they could replace both, one math and one science?
Correct. So it's truly a flex credit. So a student with 2 computer science flex credits, their graduation requirements might be 3 math in a computer science and 2 science in a computer science. Now those have to be 2 separate computer science classes. They can't take APCS principles and count it as their quote unquote fourth year math and third year science and career focus. But let's say they take AP-CSP and AP-CSA, or they take 2 years of our high school adopted courses, then yes, they could use it in those two. They could get 2 career focuses. They could do science and a career focus with 4 traditional math. It really is flexible in how that shifts, and I think that is that's one of those things that we mentioned earlier of just under early leadership in this initiative. We broke down a lot of barriers, Dr. Gosher, and really it gets back to providing opportunities for students that ADE has not always been open to. And I tell this story quite often. One of the hardest conversations I ever had as a math specialist for the department was with the parents of a 7th grader who was taking calculus at the high school. This student was taking college algebra at the local college, and we could not certify that high school to give that student a diploma because they had not sat through a year of algebra and geometry. Now, those are the kind of policies that under CS computer science, that we really kind of broke down some barriers. And that's what we want schools to see the flex credit as an opportunity for our schools to be flexible for our students in their graduation pathways. So a lot of questions come up about how's this calculated. It's built into Tri-End. That's the beautiful thing about it. Our counselors don't have to, we want them to be aware of it. We want our administrators to be aware of it, but Tri-End is going to automatically go in, and we have the rules finally, I hope, clarified now within the business, what we call the business rules in the Tri-End system, that is properly calculating those. If schools run across issues where they're questioning, we still have, guess what? We still have programming issues sometimes, but if they come across issues or they're questioning, send me an email. Don't send me student identifiable information. Typically what I ask for is the student Tri-End number and the first and last initial, and then we'll pull up that information and internally look at that and see why it may not be pulling properly. But we have built the flex credit into the Tri-End system. Greg, I think you'll appreciate this one. The one thing CS cannot replace is our biology requirement. Okay. And I'm just going to say that very briefly. They cannot replace their required biology requirement in state graduation. This question also comes back, this kind of circles back around to our licensure question. We get a lot of schools that call and ask, well, if this is going to count as a math credit, as a science credit, does the teacher have to have a math or science certification? That goes back to my very careful use of words that they are not getting a math credit. They are not getting a science credit. They are getting a computer science credit, which changes their graduation requirements. So the answer to that is no. Since they're not getting a math credit, the teacher does not have to be math certified. They're getting a computer science credit, so they have to be certified to teach computer science.
Agreed.
So, so that's a quick answer to that question. Any follow-up or questions on that, or
I
do
just
y'all
have
see
a question
confusion?
about how that impacts local graduation requirements. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So as of right now, the state of Arkansas still allows districts the ability to expand upon what their local graduation requirements are. So a school, though I would personally challenge their reasoning for this, and professionally challenge their reasoning for this, a school can elect to not recognize the computer science flex credit. A local school could say, we still require 4 mathematics credits, we still require 3 full science credits for us to give a local diploma out of our school. I would go back to challenging, where's the research that is beneficial, or is that just because we've always done it? Which I think in lots of instances is the issue. Or it's easier, as Commissioner Key once said, and I think you were actually in this meeting, and this is where my respect level for Commissioner Key just went multitudes higher at this point. There were 2 assistant commissioners that were having a pretty passionate disagreement about something, and he finally just kind of put his hand down and he said, stop. You're arguing what's best for students, you're arguing what's easiest for adults. You win, you lose, time to move on. And sometimes I wonder, honestly, if we're just not, if we don't make those policy decisions of that graduation requirement because it's easier for adults, not what's best for students.
Yeah.
And so I would challenge those schools that are still looking in that mode of thought, why?
Right.
Not saying you can't do it. I'm just asking you why you're doing it.
Right.
Dr. Gocher is a superintendent and someone who worked for AD. I don't want to put you on the spot because I know you have you have to maintain a relationship with your fellow superintendents. But what are your thoughts about that? If you feel
No, I think it's a great question. I think of our board goals in Russellville School District. Everything we do is for the benefit of students. Yes, we want to benefit our community, have partnerships with our business partners, but everything we do has to be in the best interest of students. And so I think if we keep that as a filter, keep that as a part of our board goals, and I think that's always the right course. We have to think about how it impacts the teacher in the classroom, because going back to that third of our teachers leaving the profession in 5 years, I want to make sure that the teachers in the classrooms are feeling that support, but still our decisions ultimately, and for a school board and for a superintendent, we've got to use that as our main filter. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, yes, sir, it does. Karma, as you know, you have a background in math like I do, and math is very important to me also. You know, my major was in math in college, so obviously I have a passion for it also. What are your thoughts of now being on the computer science side? What are your thoughts of a student who may not take that class that we typically see as beyond Algebra 2? What are your thoughts about a student replacing that with a computer science? What benefits do you see? Honestly, what drawbacks do you see? And we may not have research that supports either side, so at this point I'm asking, what are your thoughts just as a math teacher who also teaches computer science?
Yeah, initially as a math teacher, I kind of want to go, no, they need 4 math credits. But now that I've taught computer science for a little while now, I see that there are a lot of similarities and that there are some kids that the computer science is going to take them further, and they may even spark their interest in another math or a science field or something else in the process of learning about computer science.
Well, and I'll quickly use this anecdote that I use teaching mathematics at a high level. You know, I ask groups of math teachers sometimes, how many of y'all learned how to calculate the area under a parabolic curve using Riemann sums? And you know,
Yeah.
all of us that took calculus, we learned that. Whether we remember it or not,
Right.
we learned it. And then I ask, how many of y'all use it on a daily basis other than to teach other poor, unfortunate souls how to calculate the area under a parabolic curve using Riemann sums?
Right.
So why do we teach that? And the reason is that we're having higher level problems, more difficult problems that students have to engage with. They have to find entry points. They have to devise a solution, they have to implement a solution, and then they revise it afterward to see if it was efficient. Now, Karma, I'll ask you as a computer
Exactly.
science teacher, what are your students doing?
Exactly those things, yes.
So those higher level mathematics courses, I would argue that most of the concepts that we teach in calculus, the vast majority of our students are not going to use on a daily basis. But I will say that the problem-solving skills that are taught in calculus and the analytical thought processes that are taught in calculus are the same, if not similar, to those that we teach in computer science, and just as valuable, but also gives them a real-world context for those skills.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Greg, just real briefly on the science side, what are your thoughts?
Well, just mirroring what you did, the conversation you were just having in mathematics, you know, when you really look at the standards, you know, I've spent more time looking at that embeddedness, those connections between the K-8, but those connections remain strong all the way through those standards. When you look at the practices of thinking computationally, you know, those are practices that are developed in progressions in our science and our math standards all the way through high school. When we look at analyzing and interpreting data, using that to justify a conclusion, to analyze a solution to a problem, those kinds of thinking and that kind of practices are being developed. So I do see a strong, tight overlap to supporting the ways of thinking, no matter whether that student is doing that in a computer science course or a science course or a math course or an engineering course. So many similar opportunities there to support their learning.
The practices that he mentioned, yes, the math and the computer science, even the science, very similar. The problem solving, the collaboration, all of those things that are just cross-curricular that kids need to know. They're definitely prevalent in computer science as well.
Great. Well, we're going to take a little break and come back. We'll talk about pathways involving computer science. But before we break, any last-minute challenges or suggestions? Knowing that the computer science flex credit is such a hot issue or issue in our state, do you have any last-minute thoughts or statements?
I think so.
Don't think
I
so.
don't think so.
I think we still have some communication to do, but I think this session will be a great addition to that communication piece that we're trying to roll out to our states. We'll be back shortly to discuss pathways involving computer science.